Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Words of Life podcast with Adam and Kevin. Today we are finishing the book of Judges, and one would think that that would mean the end of the Judges, but alas, there's one more who's called a judge of Israel who is yet to come. But before we dive into that, we are going to welcome and say hello to Kevin. He and I were just chatting offline about all of our aches and pains and woes and dirty jobs that we do on the side and things like that. So hello, Kevin.
Hey, Adam, how's it going?
It's good. It's good. So yeah, we were talking about, this landscaping and gardening tasks.
Springtime yard work, right?
Right.
It's that time of year.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you have a compost pile, which is really good of you. I probably should establish one of those. I have plenty of stuff to use.
You have plenty of clippings and things to use. Yeah,
plenty of stuff for sure. Mine might have some poison ivy or oak in it though, so I don't know.
If it gets hot enough, it's not going to matter, right? But it'll kill all that stuff. But yeah, you got to be careful with getting it mixed in there, I guess, in the first place, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I was telling Kevin that I've been. Spring is upon us, and so we were having to do all the yard maintenance a lot more here in East Tennessee. It seems like stuff grows so fast during the springtime, and I've been tackling my backyard and front yard, but the side yard where we let the dogs out and have a fenced area for them, I have neglected, and it unfortunately almost overnight became thigh-high grass, and so I had to bite the bullet and get out there with a weed eater today and just, plow through all that stuff and clean it all up just so that I could get the mower back there.
That's right.
Because it would not have tackled that in that state. But alas, we prevail, right? Crazy. Anything else happening with you guys?
Man, yeah, our sister-in-law, who's lived with us the last couple of years, is moving out this coming weekend, and then we'll have 5 whole days before Kelson gets back from college of empty nesting. So,
wow,
that's sort of our deal.
5 days. So like vacation. Are you
yeah,
going?
right.
Is it a staycation this time? Or
no, we're staying here because at the end of the week we got to go to Florida, right?
Yeah.
So for graduation.
Yeah, so he's coming back and then returning with you guys.
No, we'll go out there for graduation, then he'll fly back with us. So we'll leave, right, and we'll be there for the graduation ceremony, then fly back that Sunday, and he'll be in tow with us.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Yep.
That will be great. Now, he's actually planning on staying in Arizona?
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, as far as we know, they're getting married out here, he and his fiance, and her teaching credentials here, and his in-laws will be here, right? So his whole family will be here. So, but who knows, right? What will happen or where they'll go? But that's the immediate plan anyway. Is for them to live here.
Roger that. All right. Well, that is great. Looking forward to all of that. Okay. Well, let's dive in. As you all may have recalled, we handled the kind of gruesome episode last week of just the final, like just the low point in this story where we have like Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0, leaving with this horrible story about this poor concubine that was basically murdered and thrown to the dogs, and the Levite, just cut her up and distributed her all over Israel. Now we're at the angry mob phase, right? So what else should we add there as we get into this, Kev?
It's this picture of, as we kind of have been saying over and over and over again, especially as we look at the last several chapters, just the continued decline of there is no king in Israel. Everyone does what's right in their own eyes, right? And that has sort of progressed through, idolatry, basically the story of Sodom all over again, except taking place in Israel. So all the sexual morality going on, murder, and now it's going to turn into sort of complete civil decline where we'll basically have a civil war going on through here. Book will close with that same refrain again, right? Sort of explaining what you just read. Remember, there was no king and everyone just did whatever they thought was right in their own eyes. And so we're seeing this civil piece that's going to fall here. And we'll see a lot of these repetition of themes we've already seen in the text as well. Stories where like, hey, we saw something like that, and now we're going to see that play out again as the book sort of concludes, just to give you this full picture of setting up, why we get to where we get to with the kings and that sort of stuff.
All right. So as we start chapter 20 of the book of Judges, we have this scene where it says, all the people of Israel came out from Dan to Beersheba, including the land of Gilead. So it's basically saying, hey, this was pretty widespread. People are saying, whoa, they're up in arms and alarmed from this event. And they assembled as one man to the Lord at Mizpah. All right. And then we have the chiefs of all the people, all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God, totaling 400,000 men on foot that drew the sword. So, yeah, it's instantly up in arms.
Yeah, when you get a piece of a dead woman that's been chopped up, sent throughout the land, right, it gets a response. And so they all show up, right, with the question, what happened? How did this wickedness take place? What is this great evil? And so that's interesting because, they don't even really know, like, what's happening, right? Because remember, I said he just cut her up and he centered all the thing. And we assume there must have been some sort of message or something that accompanied that, right? Otherwise,
Yeah.
just like, what is this, right? But they show up and say, tell us how this wickedness occurred. Like, what is this great? So the wickedness, as far as I can tell, is the cutting up of this woman and sending her around through the thing, right? Like, what is this thing? And so then he tells the story of, what happened. I went to this town, our own people, right? They didn't receive me. They raped my concubine to death. And so, that's why I'm calling everyone together, give your consent and your counsel and your advice here at the end of verse 7, right? What do you say about this? And the response is pretty immediate there, right? Like we're not even going home, right? So you might have assumed they would all come together and go, okay, we figured out a plan. All right, let's figure this out. Let's set a time. Let's get this all organized. But they decide, nope, we got to take care of this now. None of us is returning to our tent. We will go up by lot and fight against Gibeah, and we'll just go through and we'll wipe them out, right?
Yeah.
Because of this great disgrace they've committed against Israel.
Yeah, I mean, they rally, or they basically like distribute. Say, okay, we're going to take 10%, basically, right? We're going to take 10% of the men from all the tribes. And 100 of 1,000 and 1,000 of 10. So they basically said, okay, we'll take 10 of 100, 100 of 1,000, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
And then so that they may repay Gibeah of Benjamin for all the outrage that they have committed in Israel. So all the men of Israel gathered against the city, united as one man. Now, what's interesting is either A, they already knew of the reputation of the evil of Gibeah.
Sure.
Or they're just hungering for a fight and they didn't really care if the evidence was true or not.
Yeah, they just take this guy's word for it, right? That this is what happened.
Yeah, that's what I'm
let's
saying.
go deal with it, right?
All right, well, if that's the case, then we're going to go take them out, right? There's zero investigation, zero, corroboration. It's just this one man.
Yeah.
And there seems to be no other witness that's corroborating, at least what that we're told about.
Yeah, there would have been the other guy that lived there that dwelt there but lived somewhere else.
Could have corroborated, right?
We don't know. Right? We don't know.
We know that by the law, it took 2 witnesses.
Yeah.
To accuse somebody of a crime punishable by death.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because they do go down there, and apparently their intent is we're going to send sort of mass intimidation, right? But when they show up in Gibeah, right, they do say, hey, give up the worthless fellows that did this, right? Give them up. We'll kill them. We'll purge this evil from Israel, right? And so they go to Gibeah. They ask for the perpetrators of the crime, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that could have solved the problem, right? Like if Gibeah and Benjamin had some level of accountability and morality and saying, yes, you're right, this is wickedness that's been done, and we won't tolerate this amongst our own tribe, this could have been avoided, right?
Yeah.
They could have delivered up the men of the city. They could have delivered up whatever, right? But they don't, right? They wouldn't listen to the voice of their kinsmen, the children of Israel. And so then what happens, right? All the children of Benjamin gather together to Gibeah, right? So remember, it's Gibeah, the city, the town.
Right.
And even if that whole town is worthless, right? Let's assume the whole town is worthless and terrible. It is Sodom 2.0, right?
Hmm.
Um, then at least Benjamin, as a tribe, could have shown up and joined forces with everyone else and said no. And then you would have
Right.
had one town
I mean,
versus all of Israel, right?
at most, because it says here there among all these in Gibeah were 700 chosen men,
Right.
right? Oh wait, who were left-handed. So they had 700 left-handed stone slingers,
Yeah, yeah.
right? which is weird. But they had a crack shot group of left-handed sling battalion, right? But even if these 700 men were, a part of the men of war of Gibeah,
Right.
we're probably talking less than 10,000 total inhabitants in the town, in the city.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because when they gather up all the troops of Benjamin, it's 26,000, right?
Right.
And so again, it's one town versus all the nation of Israel. But
Yep.
Benjamin decides to throw in with the one town.
Yep.
Right? Nope. These are our people. This is our family. This is our clan, and we're going to defend them regardless of the wickedness or the evil that they've done. Right? And that's kind of what causes this problem. And so that's an interesting sort of lesson probably for us, right? Like how often have you seen that kind of behavior happen, that, well, this is my team, these are my people, this is my tribe, this is
Yep.
whatever. I don't care if they're right or wrong or wicked or whatever. They're on my side. They're mine, right? And so I'm going to stand up for them. And I'm going to fight against, in this case, right, the pictures, I'm going to fight against the people of God, even though I know this wickedness has been committed, because, hey, family before all else, right? Or country before all else, or whatever before all else, right?
Yeah.
And that's a human sort of characteristic we still see play out today.
Well, it's kind of crazy. So you just spurned a thought. This is weird. I was total sidebar here, folks. I'm sorry, a rabbit hole moment. But lately I've been waking up several times in the night with lots of dreams.
Okay.
And this is very uncommon for me. I don't dream, or I don't remember my dreams.
Sure.
But my brain activity at night has been really active as of late. And for the first time that I can recall, I literally woke up one morning a few days ago with a sermon in my head, a brand new brand new thing to preach or speak about, and it was very specific. This concept, it was the thief on the cross,
Okay.
but not the one we always think about.
Sure. The other one.
The
Right?
other thief on the cross, right? Because when we say the thief on the cross, we're thinking about the guy who finally at the end turned to Jesus and said,
Yes.
he rebuked the other guy for berating Jesus and basically said, please, Lord, whatever you can do for me, and Jesus basically said, hey, today you'll be with me in paradise, right? So that sparks a theological debate about salvation and all these kinds of things. Yeah. But the other guy, confronted with the Savior and the creator of the universe, right, suffering the same thing together, he went along with the crowd.
Yeah, he's defiant to the end, right?
Defiant to the end, but he basically bought into peer pressure and went along with the majority rather than the minority. And so how often do we fall into that same kind of trap, right? Yeah. Well, despite the circumstances of how dire things can be in our lives, we will still reject Jesus by choosing to go a different way.
Yeah. And that, we don't have Jesus in this, but we're going to see immediately after this that, the people of Israel, sans Benjamin, that says they will go up to inquire of God at Bethel, right? They will go and ask. So, I mean, could Benjamin certainly have done that? Hey, we are going to inquire, Lord, what should we do here, right? And would he have said, yeah, fight and do this battle? Or would he have said, yeah, give over the worthless fellows, right? Hard to say, but they don't do any of that. They just rally up around their own crew, and they're fighting against, again, the people of God in the story here. That's how it's being set up here. And so, yeah, they do. And so this is interesting because it's sort of commendable, I guess, right? That they go and say, hey, should we go up? Right. So like I say, their intent was, we're going to intimidate them and they'll hand them over. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to be, hey, we're going to have to fight brother against brother, we're going to fight tribe against tribe, they take a step back and they ask God, should we do this? Right. And he says, Yes, right? Who's to go up first against us? And the Lord replied, Judah first, right? So they even get an answer like, yep, this is what's got to happen.
What's interesting though is how it's given to us is they didn't actually ask permission to do
Yeah,
this
just who's got
thing,
to go up first? Yeah,
right? So they just the people of Israel, verses 18 in chapter 20, it says the
yeah,
people of Israel arose and went up to Bethel and inquired of God, who shall go up first for us to fight against the people of Benjamin?
yeah.
And the Lord said,
Judah.
Judah
Yeah,
shall go up first.
yeah. And
I
it's
mean,
curious because
yeah,
the fallout's going to be, and this is what's interesting against this, right? You would think then the answer is going to be great. So they go out that day and they win, right? But they don't. The children of Benjamin come out of Gibeah, strike down 22,000 men of Israel in the field that day, right? So Gibeah wins day one after God has said, Judah, go up first, right? So they go again, and they go and they fall down before the Lord and weep and all of this stuff and say, and this time they ask, shall I again draw near to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, right? Should I go up again, God, or are you telling us something? And he says, go up again, right? And so they go up the second time, and again, they lose another 18,000 men, right? So 40,000 men have been killed now in this civil war, effectively, right? And they weep and weep again. And then the third time he says, go up tomorrow, I'll give them into your hand, right? So there's some sort of level here of God punishing the rest of Israel as well, right? Which I don't know why or what the story is, what the rationale is there. I assume that the answer is the same answer that we're going to get later because everyone's just doing what's right in their own eyes.
right.
Look, you're going to do this and you're going to wipe out this evil, but I want you to understand and know the reason you're in this situation in the first place is because of the entire wickedness of the land that's all about us.
Yep.
Right. And it never should have gotten this bad in the first place. So yeah, we're going to take care of Benjamin, but you're all not getting off the hook either. Right. You're gonna pay for your sin
Right.
here in blood. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is when you get down to verse 26, where you talk
Yeah.
about it, right? Then all the people of Israel, the whole army went up and came to Bethel and wept. They sat there before the Lord and fasted
Yeah.
and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord.
Yeah, which we hadn't seen previously, right?
We had not seen that.
Right.
And you wonder if God, if God just was subtly saying, you haven't been doing your part in our covenant agreement,
Yeah, right.
right? And so they took another step back, humbled themselves even more,
Right.
right? And yeah, interesting. Also, we don't actually know. Okay, sorry, it was Phineas and the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron. So Aaron's grandson was ministering the Ark
Yeah,
of the Covenant.
and that's interesting, right? Because when you look at that and you try and figure out the timeline, we were talking a little bit
Yep,
offline, right? And we'll talk about it a little more, right? People try and figure out what's the time that's passed here,
yep,
right? And you sort of add up dates and you sort of look at different bookmarks. And one of the challenges is it's not clear how much this is like consecutive and how much is concurrent, right?
right.
Because a lot of times we'll see things and it's in a certain area, a certain region. And so some of these things could have been happening consecutively, right?
Yep,
But most people seem to agree it's about 300-ish years that the book of Judges takes, which seems reasonable because it'll talk about generations coming and going, right? And so when I'm looking at this statement here, it talks about who's ministering to the ark effectively in that day, right? You'll get different things. Phineas, you'll get Pinchas, right? Depending on the translation,
mm-hmm.
these are a son of Aaron, right? So you're like, is this Aaron's grandson,
Or
right?
the
Like,
or were there a couple of others in
or
there
is it just you know Pinchas or Phineas, the son of Eleazar, who is of the
of
line of
Aaron?
Aaron,
Yeah,
right?
right. Yeah,
Kind of a thing.
yep,
I mean, it does seem to be putting some sort of emphasis on it, but it could just be saying that no, they went it before the ark, they went it before the high priest,
mm-hmm.
and so it's carrying sort of the weight of now we're really asking in earnest the way we ought to have done at the
Yeah,
beginning, right? That's sort of the way I lean because you'll see that sort of phrasing before, the son of David, right? Okay, but
yeah,
you're not really the son of David. You're 6
exactly.
generations removed,
Yep.
right, from David there. So
All right. So yeah, after doing all of those things and beseeching the Lord properly, in verse 28, 29, he says, "Go up, for tomorrow I will give them into your hand."
yeah,
So we have Israel set men in ambush around Gibeah. And the people of Israel went up against the people of Benjamin on the third day and set themselves in array against Gibeah as at other times. Yeah, so we have the people of Benjamin went out against the people and were drawn away from the city, which is foolish, obviously.
Yeah, and that's sort of the setup this time, right? It's
Yeah.
different apparently, right? This time they have a plan,
Yep.
effectively, and the plan is, we'll draw them out, but we'll keep other people in ambush, right? We'll just have
Yeah.
the same sort of size group we have before, and when we turn to flee this time, they'll be tricked into thinking, oh, it's just like it's been every other day. We've grown arrogant, we've grown cocky, and so they decide to pursue them like they've probably done before, but this time, right? If you do the same tactic three times,
they crest the hill and whoops,
that's right.
So,
and they kind of come over, and what they realize is as they go out to chase them down, then the people that were in ambush then attack the city and set it on fire while the army's away.
Yeah.
And so then they see, and so they turn around to go and try and go back, but now they're on both sides, right? There's the people already there who've burned down the town, and there's the people who are pursuing coming back. And so, this time doesn't work out for them, right? And so it says in 44, 18,000 men of Benjamin fell. The rest turned and fled to the wilderness, the rock of Rimnon. They picked off another 5,000 of them on the highways.
Well, they got, in verse 35 is 25,100 of Benjamin that day, right?
Yeah.
Those were all men who drew the sword. And so we see basically the total annihilation of Gibeah.
It's just going to count down through the things, right? This one go, this one go, 5,000, then 2,000 more, right? All who fled fell that day were 25,000 total, right? And again, 25 and 25 is at 50 total. And so you get all that way, but the final emphasis of it is 600 men turn and escape to the wilderness, the rock of Rimnon, stayed at the rock for 4 months. Men of Israel turned back against the children of Benjamin, struck them with the edge of the sword, the entire city, the cattle, all they found, set fire in all the towns that they had found. So originally, their plan, right, is to go get the worthless fellows, perhaps punish the city as a whole. The end result is they effectively wipe out the entire tribe, right? They reduce them down to such a small number. They don't just burn Gibeah, they burn all the Benjamite towns they come across. They really just wipe them out down to a very, very small remnant or number. And then it goes one step further, right? Because they left these men alive and they're there for 4 months. But then we see that there was an additional sort of thing that happened. In 21 verse 1, the men of Israel had sworn while in Mizpah, saying, none of us will give his daughters to Benjamin in marriage, right? So they've basically said, that's it. Right, we're not going to intermarry with them anymore,
right?
And that's going to effectively wipe out the rest of them over some period of a generation or two. Right, there just won't be enough of them around, and they won't have anybody to marry. There won't be anyone for them, and we've killed everybody else. So, they're going to attrition out the rest effectively. So we have this sort of recall theme, right, of this sort of foolish vow kind of a thing, right? Because they appear to regret it, right? In verse 2, it says, they came to Bethel, sat there to evening before God, lifted their voices and wept bitterly, saying, Lord God of Israel, why has this happened in Israel that one tribe should be missing? Because you vowed not to give them any. What do you mean? you made the vow, right?
Well, like you made the vow and then you wiped them out. Like,
you did all the killing. You made the vow. Like, yeah, right. Like, oh God, what is happening here? Right? It was so miserable that this would happen. But again, so it's that same idea, right? It's the foolish vow, the thing that you say that then later you come to regret and you realize the consequences of that thing. And this time the result is going to be the annihilation of an entire tribe, right? Is what's going to happen there. And again, they sort of like do this thing. If we made this oath, we got to keep our oath. But like, how can we get around it? Right? Sort of a bit there. So they come up with a plan, right? And their plan is effectively, hey, who didn't come up to the assembly before the Lord, right? How many?
Which tribe?
Which groups of people didn't come up, right? And so they're able to find no one had come up from the camp of Jabesh Gilead. None of their inhabitants were there, right? So they go there and they say, great, let's go kill more of our countrymen, right? Let's go kill, because they had made another vow, right? They had made an oath concerning anyone who didn't come up to Mizpah saying he will be put to death. So they go, great, we've got 2 oaths. One, we won't give our daughters in marriage. Two, we're going to kill a bunch more people. I see a plan, right? Let's go kill all the men from that town and take the marrying age daughters that are around, right? And we'll give them, right? Because then we didn't give them our daughters. They got them from Jabesh Gilead, who wasn't there, who made the oath, right? And so that's what they do. They go and they kill a bunch more people from Jabesh Gilead, and they only spare the 400 young virgins that they have there, and they bring them to Shiloh, and they're going to give them over, right? Saying, great, here it is. This is the thing. Like, this is what we're going to do. We found some wives for you that let us technically keep our oath. Both of them, right? 2 birds, 1 stone. We killed a bunch of people who didn't show up, and we're going to give you wives. But if you do the math, the numbers are short, right? They've only got 2/3 the number sort of that they need there, right? We've got these 400, but we don't have enough. And so they have to come up for another one, right? So in verse 26, the elders of the congregation, or 16, what should we do about the wives for those who are left, since all the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? The survivors of Benjamin must have heirs, so the tribe isn't blotted out. We can't give them wives of our daughters because we already swore this oath, this curse. And so they've got these ones they brought up to Shiloh, right? Already, the 400 women they've brought there from this other tribe or from this town of Jabesh Gilead, and they go, "Hey, we know there's a feast of the Lord that goes on there in Shiloh, and as they go, right, there's this highway where the women go out, and the young women will go out towards this feast, and they'll go along this road, and so they basically send word ahead to Benjamin and say, "Hey, kidnap young women as they are going up to this feast, right? Like go do that. When the daughters of Shiloh come out to join the dances, come out of the vineyards where you've laid an ambush and catch a wife.
Each man a wife, right?
And then quickly head back to Benjamin, right? And if anyone complains from that town, right, if their fathers or brothers come to complain to us, we'll say, hey, do us a solid, basically, right? Grant this grace for us, because we didn't provide each of them a wife in battle, and you did not give them yourself. Technically, right? They were kidnapped. You didn't give them your daughter, so you're not guilty, right? And it's going to cost you 200 young women, and that will solve our problem there, right? And it does, right? Everyone does that, returns to their own inheritance, and then you get this statement when you're just sitting here nodding your head, shaking your head. What? Is remember, there was no king in Israel at that time, and everyone just did what was right in their own eyes, right?
Yep.
What they thought was best.
And that's how the book ends, right?
That's right. And so you can see, that's an explanation of this entire several chapters.
Yep.
Right?
In
the
those
whole
days,
thing
there was
just
no king in Israel.
Right. Everyone's just doing what they think is best, and trying to get out of the things they've done, while still keeping their vows. And these, right? Hey, we found the loophole. We're going to pull some 7 brides for 7 brothers action here, right? We'll kidnap them and head to their own land.
Probably less dancing and less singing, though,
yes.
right?
Well, there was some dancing and singing, at least from the 200 young virgins they captured and kidnapped, right? Because they were going up to join the dances. And
goodness gracious. Them.
Yeah, but
well, that finishes the book of Judges, everybody, and I think that as we are transitioning into the era of Samuel as our technically our final judge, Kevin and I thought it would be appropriate to just get us up to speed with the total arc and the timeline of the people of Israel, so that we have a really good understanding of, because Samuel is the fulcrum point between 2 eras of God's people, okay? And so a good friend of mine, Kevin, you know Barry Kirchville, right? Yeah. So Barry Kirchville was a gospel preacher at my home congregation in El Cajon, California when I was growing up. His son, Brent, has also become a gospel preacher, a good friend of mine. And growing up, Barry had taught an overview of the Bible, an overview of the Old Testament, and he broke it down into these chunks, logical chunks as you just find in the timeline. Basically is 12 periods in the Old Testament. And so if you look through Genesis, the first 3 chapters are the beginning, right? The creation and then the fall of man. With Adam and Eve's sin, and then they're exiting the garden, and then enters in the pre-flood era. So between all the way from Adam all the way through Noah, right? And we have the lineage of Seth recorded for us very diligently there. And Jesus comes through Seth's lineage because that's just how it works. So we have the pre-flood world, Genesis 4 through 6. The flood and basically the reset of the planet is chapter 7 through 9. And then leading up to the Tower of Babel, we have the nations forming after Noah and his family repopulate the earth. And that happens in chapters 10 and 11. And then we have chapter 12 through 50 of the book of Genesis. The largest chunk of that book is the patriarchal period. So you have the call of Abram, who becomes Abraham. He's from the Ur of the Chaldeans, which is basically where Babylon is established. God calls him out of that land into the promised land, and you see the initial promises of God given to Abram there of land and savior and nation promises. And then we have the establishment through Joseph of the nation of Israel in Egypt. And that really kind of ends the book of Genesis, where we see we see, well, you have Moses coming onto the scene, right? And all the things that will lead us to where Exodus would happen, right? You want to interject anything there, Kev?
No, that's pretty good, right? And so it's easy to kind of remember it in that way of what's going on. We talk about the patriarchs, right? We sometimes use that term differently. We'll talk about the patriarchal period, right, being everything in front of the law. Right? In this case, we're saying, in this case, we're saying the patriarchs is like, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? Like, okay, the patriarchs of Israel, right?
Israel, correct? Yep.
The people who set up that thing, and then the book sort of concludes with them established down in Egypt and beginning to become a large nation.
Yep.
And that will then open up to the next period, which is the Exodus.
The Exodus, right?
Which is the whole story of Moses and the burning bush, the 10 plagues, and all of that stuff that's going to come there in the book of Exodus.
And the wilderness wanderings, right? Yeah. That would be the next period of time. Now, we talk about
effectively like the Moses time, right? If you want to think of it that way, it's the time when Moses is kind of in charge, right? He leads them out. He takes them to the wilderness. Yeah.
Yep. And Moses followed by Joshua, right? Yep. And so, timeline-wise, right? Megan actually did the math on all this stuff. And it's interesting to know that like Adam was still alive.
Oh yeah. When you look at some of the different,
all the generations,
to his
Yeah.
Great grandchildren.
Melchizedek was still around.
Yeah,
prior to the flood, right up to the flood, that sort of thing. All right, so after Moses leads the people out of Israel, we have Mount Sinai, the establishment of the law and the covenants, and they're a nation, but they're a flawed nation because their culture had been influenced heavily by the idol worship of Egypt. And so that's why you have like the burning calf and the golden calf, the golden calf and all the troubles that idolatry plagued the people. And of course, their lack of faith leading them to God saying, you know what, I'm just going to let this generation die out in the wilderness so I can start with a new generation that will remember me and what I did for them and bring them out of Egypt. And Joshua will lead the people into the conquest in conquering the land of Canaan. And so after Joshua, we have Judges.
Right. A period of time we've just sort of looked at it here in this book.
That's where we've been at studying this book. And so they've established themselves as a nation, but they didn't do it perfectly. They didn't wipe out all the people. That's why we've had all these troubles and all these problems in this book that we've been going through. And so the period of the Judges, the next period is what we call the United Kingdom. Okay, that means the northern kingdom, which will become the northern kingdom, the 10 tribes north, followed by the tribe of Judah and Benjamin.
Yeah.
Right? And Benjamin's hardly ever mentioned again at all because of this event.
Because of this event. That's right. Yeah, and so the next period we'll move into here is the sort of, like you say, fulcrum period, right? Is this transition from this. I mean, they're still tribal afterward, but basically this tribal nation to a kingdom, right?
Yes.
That's the transition that's going to happen when they come on. They say we don't want a king anymore, and that's going to
No,
happen.
we want a
We
king
want a king.
like
We
the
don't
nation.
want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to be led by your son Samuel or this judge nonsense
Right.
anymore, right? We want a king like all the nations around us. And so that's going to take place in the period of one man's lifetime, right? This transition from one to the other. He'll be the last one. He will still be around as the kings are set up, right? And so that transition is going to take place,
Mm-hmm.
in his life, where we go from being all of this thing that's been moved along effectively,
Yeah.
right? Because even when you have the land that's being established, right? That they've got already. You've got the great nation, perhaps, right? That's coming onto the scene here, but it's difficult to call them a nation at this point, right? Because they are still effectively like 12 nations, right? That are familiarly related. We've just seen them like fighting amongst themselves and killing each other, right? And individual judges taking leadership in charge in different parts of the country at different times. But after this, right, we will get the Saul, and then that expansion under David, and then Solomon, and right, we'll have a kingdom proper,
Yep.
right, a dynasty proper.
And
Sort of
then
a period.
we have the era of the sad face kings.
That's
the
right. If
smiley
you
face
remember back
kings,
from
right?
that timeline when you're young. Yeah. So that will be the divided kingdom.
Yep.
And then as we're finishing up sort of this this Old Testament period, I think then you've just got after that the
Right, so you have the
exile.
United Kingdom followed by the divided kingdom.
Yep.
Right, and then we have the exile, a period of exile
carried off.
Yeah,
Yep.
where you've got Assyria comes in a couple times, followed by Babylon, right? And Babylon, the Babylonian captivity includes the book of Daniel, for instance. He's one of the first people to come out of them. And then we have the post-exile return,
right,
where you have the prophets of Ezra and Nehemiah that come back to Jerusalem and Israel specifically to rebuild the temple that is destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar in.
Yeah, and so they'll get that sort of set back up, and that's going to then close out effectively the timeline of the Old Testament, right? You'll
Yeah. So then you have all of the period of the prophets happen all throughout this period.
Yeah, it's happening. That's happening through the period of the divided kingdom, right? Because they're prophesying against Israel, they're prophesying against Judah. They're and different prophets will prophesy to different places and at different times, and then even through the exile, right? There'll be prophets that are still talking there, and as you say, right, when Ezra comes back and is leading the spiritual restoration there, I mean, he has direct communication with God as well, right? So he's a prophet as well, as does Nehemiah.
Yep.
Though he seems to have sort of a different purpose there, and so that whole period is the prophets, right? So we think about it in our books that the prophets are sort of this, but it's happening in an overlapping time with Chronicles and Kings and these sorts of things there. Yeah,
absolutely. And so the last book in the Old Testament is the prophet Malachi, and I think they put it there well. They did a good job of placing it as the final book of the Old Testament, because it does appear to be, chronologically speaking, pretty much the last recorded words that we have of a prophet of the Lord speaking to his people, the Israel nation, right?
Yeah.
And then we don't have any other recordings for about 400 years. Sometimes people will refer that to the years of silence and or the waiting years.
Yeah.
And so as we think about just looking forward to Jesus, God was allowing events to just take place. The establishment of the synagogues, for instance, took place during the exile period.
Yeah.
And so the nations, the empires that were prophesied in Daniel chapter 2, when Nebuchadnezzar's vision of the statue, the final empire that is prophesied is basically the Roman Empire, which would usher in the period that would be perfect. The fullness of time, as Paul or Peter mentioned, I forget which one, where Jesus would arrive on the scene perfectly, right, fulfilling all the prophecies.
Yeah, and so I think that's going to set us up well to kind of look at that next step there
Yep.
of the
So
lifetime of Samuel and the
hopefully
things there.
that's a good overview for y'all to just kind of get in place where we're at in the timeline and what's kind of the context of Samuel and what's coming next. It's just really good. So again, just to recap: creation, pre-flood, flood and reset, nations and Babel, patriarchs, not the patriarchal period, but patriarchs, meaning the patriarchs of Israel, Exodus and the wilderness wanderings, conquest and judges, united kingdom, divided kingdom, exile, return and rebuild, and then the waiting period, 400
Yeah.
years of silence.
And so that gives you 12 things, easy to remember because it's always the number of things in the Old Testament, right? So it's a good way to break it down. I mean, certainly you could break it down other ways, but it's a nice chunked way to do it and remember roughly what's going when.
Yep. With that, we will pick up with at least First Samuel, chapter 1 next week, and we're looking forward to jumping into that. Some of the best stories that we know are found in the books of First and Second Samuel. I don't know if we'll go through both of them, but we're definitely going to tackle at least First Samuel just to give us some really good context. And we may switch gears after First Samuel to tackle another either a topic or another book from the New Testament, just to keep the variety going. Any comments or questions or suggestions for those things after we go through First Samuel? That would be great. We'd love to hear from y'all. Again, if you are seeing this on YouTube or Spotify, you're listening to this on Spotify, and you haven't subscribed, hit the notification bell. Anytime you add a comment, that really helps as well. To know that to teach the algorithm that you like what we're doing. We would appreciate that. If you made it this far, you're loyal, so we appreciate you. God bless, and we hope you have an amazing week.